That's the first time I've ever done it.
She looked good after she looked like she was in the nightclub.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 7:03, January 12th. Welcome to the City Commission meeting, Lake Common, Florida. Roll call. Zone 1.
Present.
Zone 2. Here. Zone 3. Here. Zone 4.
Here.
And Mayor is present, as well as City Administrator and City Attorney. Thank you all for being here this evening. If I could call on Vince Kuda to offer up the legislative prayer.
Before we stand, I'd like to address the commission, if I can, and the people that are here. There's a lot of challenges in 2023, and I want to say specifically to the commission, the fact that you allow let me turn my computer off, the fact that you allow the pastors that are in the community to go ahead and bless before you have the meetings is of a lot of importance. And the reason I say that is because prayers are heavy, especially when things are not going well, or things are going well, or people are sick. You represent the city. And so I just want to thank you, first of all, and tell you that the local pastors here are supporting this. You'll see a lot of different ones that will be here throughout the commission meetings to go ahead and pray. So it's an honor for us. One thing I would tell you is there's a scripture. I won't go to the scripture. I'll just paraphrase for you. It basically says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. It's a hard thing to do when you sit on council. It's not easy. Some people don't understand the philosophy or the things that happen, decisions that have to be made. But one thing I would share with you, if you'll turn to the Lord when those decisions are tough, a lot of times wisdom will come to you and you can make the right decision. Sometimes it's not easy, but it'll be the right decision for the city. So with that, I just want to thank you, and if you'll stand, we'll go ahead and pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight for our commission meeting for the city of Lake County. We thank you that it's a new year. A lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities for this year. A lot of things that carried over from 2022. We know 2022 was a difficult year. For some, for sickness, for death in the family, for financial situations. But in all that, our city is still intact. And Father, I pray for every council member and their family that sits on this commission, for our mayor, for our city administrator, for our city attorney, for our first responders, for our police force that protects us, all the people that are involved in this city. We ask a blessing upon them. We ask for wisdom for them as they make these tough decisions and look forward to the future. Let them know that you are always there, that you are always in these chambers, that you will always preside. If you ask, you will receive. And so, Father, I thank you for that. In the precious name of Jesus, let 2023 in the city of Lake County be one that would be marked for righteousness in Jesus' name. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
I would have a suggestion. I would like to take the quasi judicial off since it was, since we received it quite late this time. I don't know if, how everyone else feels about
Any other thoughts? Is that a motion or is that
that. Suggestion, kind of,
want to talk about it?
yes.
Okay. Any thoughts? I have some.
We want to take it completely off of this.
I'd like to put it on February's agenda.
Okay. Is that going to create an adverse situation for anyone?
I think it would create an adverse situation for the homeowners that would have to wait that month. I agree with you that we got it very late, and I understand your hesitancy to be back into a last minute decision without necessarily having had time to weigh the facts.
But also the public, you know, to make sure they have enough time to prepare if they had something they wanted to see.
I agree with Heather, there needs to be a deadline that they get turned in so that we get the agendas in time to be able to go through it, redo it.
Can we do that going forward, and even if we need to throw one or two of these out that are anything other than unanimous, we can go through them individually and do that. I just think you're not doing our patrons a service by telling them they have to wait, because there may be no fault for them. We don't know at this juncture why we got it late.
Right. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Thank you.
I have an addition as well,
Okay.
I'd like to add. I'd like to discuss the public works truck that was taken off-site, and I was hoping you could add it to 9C, new business.
I'm sorry, add where?
9C.
I see, okay.
I have an addition also concerning public works.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I said
had to
I
write that down. It took me a minute.
Concerning public works, I have an addition also.
You want to add that as
Yes, please.
9D
That's
perhaps?
fine.
Okay.
Mayor, I missed the 9D.
Um,
I got C, but what's the D?
It's a public works concern.
Oh, okay. It's not the truck. Okay.
No.
It's a surprise.
Oh, do y'all want to know?
No, it's okay, we'll get there.
Okay.
Das Maschine oder no?
Your
Mine's
machine
on
is-
now. Oh, there it goes.
Magic.
Good job.
My screen looks different than what's up there.
Mine does as well.
Okay, does that conclude additions and deletions, modifications? Oh,
Mr. Mayor, I feel compelled to, for the benefit of the audience, 7B was added just today. It's on your agenda on the screen. It's on the ones we printed out here. Those who printed them at home prior to today will not see 7B, and I can explain how absolutely non-consequential it is when we get to it.
well, there is to that concept, there is it is recognized in law that the more controversial things are, the more notice there should be. This is completely non-controversial. It's really very perfunctory, so I think adding it at the last minute is reasonable.
And when I explain it, you'll see how really non-controversial that is. So,
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, approval of minutes. Have any motion?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I'll second. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. And now, it falls to my opportunity to call Jim Connell forward, if you would, sir.
Sorry.
I'll keep on coming, you know the way. Come all the way up.
Sir,
I'm not gonna make a long speech, but I want to say thank you on behalf of the city for all the work that you've done for us over the years. I'm not gonna begin to list it. I would miss 1,000 things, and I would miss 1,000 hours, and I don't want to do that. To list things minimizes them. You've been a wonderful servant to this city, greatly appreciated. It has been my honor to get to know you and call you a friend now. I very much appreciate that. You are also a friend of this city, and the city is much better for it. Thank you so much.
been my pleasure.
We look forward to leaning on your knowledge. I'll call you now and then, perhaps. Maybe it'll be on fishing, but maybe it'll be on something for the city. But presented to Vice Mayor Jim Connell in appreciation for your years of selfless devotion to and service to the city of Lake Helen. Thank you very much, sir.
Mayor, my pleasure. Thank you very much. Commissioners, thank you. Thank you for the honor. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. Good luck going forward. And the best of the city at your heart and hope and faith and honor. So appreciate everything y'all do. Plus all you guys out there and you three down there. See y'all. Thank you now. Y'all be good. Good luck over there.
I think everybody can exhale now. Sorry, inside joke there. Item 7A, acceptance of bills paid report. Do I have a motion? Or this is a consent agenda, we can get well, no, let's take 7A. Have a motion for acceptance of paid bills report? Second. Any discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to talk about the engineering costs that are on the bills paid report. I apologize, word was escaping me. I requested a few records for engineering for last month, and I only see 3 different ones here, but there's more listed. And so I was hoping that someone would just kind of talk about the ones that don't have a description on there, as to what they were. Specifically, the first line, that was typed for $99.75.
Could you give me a page number?
Page 9. The first page of the bill.
I assume you're directing that question to staff?
To staff, yes, please.
Do you want an answer now, or do you want an answer at the next meeting? And I'm serious, which would you prefer?
No, if we know it now, that'd be nice to know. The first line on here for $9,975 from ECT, it doesn't have a description, and I don't see it in the list of invoices that are requested. Do you happen to know what that was in reference to?
Let me give you a little preamble to that. We have engineering bills from both Pond Engineering and from ECT. ECT is our former engineering firm that received contracts from the city at least 9 months ago, not longer. And they, in negotiation with Pond, when Derek Mainscott transferred to Pond, those two firms negotiated who was going to maintain what contracts. This particular one is for, my recollection serves correctly, for the stormwater master plan, which was completed. It was started by ECT, it was completed by ECT. We just received that last meeting, if you recall. There are other ones that were started after Derek went to Pond and were built by Pond. Some of the ones that did go to ECT originally were transferred to Pond, completed by them, and they appeared by Pond. And I don't mean to confuse the issue, it's just how they divvied up the work. All of the work was authorized by the commission, of course. The engineering firms, both of them, don't do anything unless they have a signed work order. And of course, we don't do anything unless we have the authority of the commission. So there's not a question of authorization, there's a question of what the topics were, I think, some of these. Most of these are easily identified on the actual invoices themselves. In this particular expense report, that doesn't necessarily transfer over into what it is. It just says engineering services, and that could be any one of 1,000 different things. So, in this particular one, as I said, the first one is the stormwater master plan. which was $100,000 in total, so you can see this was the final.
To further elaborate, could you tell me, are the expenses that we saw last month, they seem to be a larger number than usual? Is that going to be the trend for this year?
Dominic is correcting me, it was the Mitchell Brothers survey. We did not, when I first arrived here, we did not have surveys of any of our parks. And that was one of the things we've been working on in the last 2 years. This particular one was the last one, I believe, we didn't list before this one. So this is a surveying chart, if I'm reading it correctly. A boundary survey. We actually didn't know where our boundary was for Melissa Park. Not this Mitchell Brothers, but this is for that particular chart. But I stand corrected, I'm sorry. Stormwater appears later on in the costs. I'm sorry, you were saying something.
No, you're fine. I was just wondering, is this going to continue? Is this going to be the trend that we see moving forward, or is this an unusual month for engineering costs?
Well, I think it's an unusual month. It's an unusual time. We are embarked on a number of major projects. We have a water master plan that highlighted about $5 million worth of projects within the water. We have the stormwater master plan, which highlighted about $2.5 million worth of projects. All of those projects have to go through the initial design, the first study phase, the design phase, the bidding phase, and the actual construction. So when individuals in the field will see work actually starting, it's really the tail end of the entire process. We're going to see a lot of the preamble work on these projects. You saw a good deal of it come through for Melissa Park and the engineering for the playground, the basketball courts. We did some property acquisitions, et cetera, and yet if you've got Melissa Park, you don't see one thing different than it was 2 years ago. But there is a great deal of pre-work that has been done necessary for the entire project to start. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Is your primary concern that we're busting the budget, and that our costs are rising dramatically, or?
It's, the number itself struck me. If you look at page 12, it does give you a total account summary. It's, I don't know, 10 down, and it looks like we spent $44,860 in engineering last month, and so I just wanted to be sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're spending the money appropriately. We're not continuing a large busting, budget busting number.
Appreciate that.
Can I say something real quick?
What's that?
Can I say something real quick? I feel like I'm lost here. Page 1 through 4 is tonight's meeting. Page 5 through 60-something is last month's meeting.
The minutes are right after. You see where it says draft, that's draft minutes.
Yeah,
And then it's the rest of the agenda.
it's got the presentation for Alan to do the Christmas lights and everything.
Yeah, that's the minutes.
And then after that,
Yeah.
I was like, I looked for that, I couldn't find it. I was like, what the heck? I was losing my mind for a second.
No, that's true.
Because I knew the minutes were in there, but then I was like, where's the rest of it? Okay, sorry.
No problem. Have a motion on the floor to pay the bills. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Item 7B, resolution 2023-03, Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, this is the item I mentioned a few minutes ago. On July 14th of last year, we adopted a virtually identical resolution. At that time, it was number 2022-03. And it was the commission's support for the meter replacement program. The resolution was advertised, or excuse me, not advertised, because we do not advertise resolutions for these matters. That was not taught by our consultants, who then sent it down to the state as a full package for funding. The state caught it and said we didn't advertise for it. So we have, in the last 2 weeks ago, we have actually advertised in the newspaper, general circulation, advertised this particular resolution and this particular issue, which it says the chemical is the one already adopted last July. Now it's necessary for you to adopt it again, so we can include it in the packet, so the state can be satisfied that we did advertise it publicly, and the matter was approved by the commission. The only differences I should tell you between now and last July is the date of the resolution and the number of years. So virtually the only two changes.
Would you like to introduce this,
Yes.
read it by title?
Resolution number 2023-03 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lake Helen, Florida relating to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, State Revolving Fund, SRF, adoption of the water facility plan for the implementation of water meter and replacements improvements effective this date.
Any discussion on this? Have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
A motion from Commissioner Basso, a second from Commissioner Epic.
No, I did not.
Oh, I'm sorry, what did you say?
You went through any discussion very quickly. Didn't
Oh.
get a chance.
I'm sorry, that's the way, sir.
Since last year when we were given the information and everything on us, I found out some new information, and that would end up costing the city almost nothing to get the water meters replaced. And I think it needs to be researched further to find out exactly the process and everything and all the information correctly to save the city the funds that we'd be extending on this.
Okay, have you shared that information with staff? I'm not familiar with what information you're talking.
It deals with the Mueller Company and their replacement, even though their shipping would take a little bit longer. Their replacements for the ones that have failed are an improvement over those currently, and they would replace them one for one. And I'm not sure if they include the shipping in the replacement or not, but that way it would not cost us from buying brand new ones from a different company. We'd get the higher grade replacements from Mueller instead.
I thought we already went through all of this when we decided to go with the other company.
We did.
I didn't have all the information on the Muellers and exactly what the process was on getting them replaced. To me, we were just given the information on timing and how many they would be able to do, and how long it would take for them to do it. Whereas looking at it and how much the city's been paying out on so many different things and everything, there's a chance for us to get them replaced for nothing.
So there's a place where we could research that? Did you Google it or
Yeah,
something?
I mean, that's really not new information, because I remember discussing it, the Mueller was giving us replacement meters. I don't know about the shipping cost, but my recollection, and they can correct me, but I think we had to do the work to install them, and we had to take off the meter, defective meter, pay for that, ship it back to them. They had to verify that it was defective, and then they were shipping it, the replacement meter to us. It was taking an extremely long time, and there was no, the agreement only required them to do it within a reasonable time. And and they have so many that they're doing, all the jurisdictions we talked to were similar votes to us. And Lee had the numbers on how quickly this was occurring, but it was like they would send us 20, and then several months later, they'd send us 20 more. And so there was cost, it wasn't free, because we had to pay for the labor of the removal of the defective meter and the installation of the new meter. I don't know about the shipping, maybe they handled the shipping cost, I don't know about that. But the main issue was how long it was gonna take. We couldn't really tell you how long it was gonna take to effectively replace all the meters.
And it's my understanding also, we already got a lot of the defective ones in storage waiting.
I don't know.
Yeah, the meter issue is part of the problem. And there were significant improvements that we felt in the new system with the software and the reading and the billing procedures too. That new system is an entirely different software package that goes with it. It's, as you recall, it allows us to actually disconnect meters electronically by pushing a button at the office if people don't pay or for whatever reason. We don't have to go out and physically turn off the meter. It can be done electronically. There is a reading system. Right now, we go down the street with the truck and we pick up the meters, go back and forth, and it works. Sometimes not as well as other times, but it does work. This particular system, for the new one, it is virtually one antenna within the entire city. It has a mile radius, and it picks up at one time all of the readings. And it does it on a 24-hour basis. And you recall, one of the issues we've had historically, no matter whose meter, is that because we only bill quarterly and we read quarterly, we don't know in some cases for up to 3 months if somebody has experiencing a leak within their home or beyond the meter. With the new system, it's very similar to Duke Energy. They can tell you immediately if you have a problem with your hot water heater because your hot water heater is constantly trying to heat the water. It's not there, it's flowing out. So they have told a number of our residents, there's nothing wrong with your electric service, but we're getting a reading that your hot water heater is probably malfunctioning and trying to, has a leak and is trying to continue to heat the water. And they have found out that was the case. So that reading of the meters occurs in the new system virtually every 24 hours. We can call people up. The county uses that system. And he said, you'll be surprised what great reviews we've gotten some citizens who called and said, we're getting a reading that you may have a leak in your house, and we want to let you know that it's appropriate to go and try to fix it. They do. There's virtually no additional cost. We've had some huge bills here. We've developed some bills for $6,000 of water that has leaked for 3 months and nobody knew it. The resident didn't know it. There's no way to tell because we don't read except on a quarterly basis. So the meters are one thing. The software is an entirely different thing. And half the cost of the entire operation, both the replacement meters, the installation, and the software, which is all paid for in this package, is paid for half by the state. So it's 50% of the cost is paid for by the state. The cost is 50%, it's actually 40% reimbursement, not 50. So again, this is a project that's going away. We've already paid Florida Rural Water to work with us on the applications before the state funding. I would really hesitate to recommend to you that we stop that whole process because of something that may save money just for the meter. That's not really the whole problem.
I plan on still researching the Muellers a little bit further because it's my understanding the replacement ones have all the same capabilities, and that information was not given to us in the past, so I need to find out for sure if that's the truth or not.
Mueller, and I would tell you, Mueller is a good company. There are about 4 different brands that are very good companies. Census is the old Rockwell meters. They've been in business for doing water meters for more than 100 years. Mueller, about the same time. They're best known for their fire hydrants. And then you have, real quick, a Badger meter. which never entered into the picture of our discussions, but there's nothing wrong with the company. They put out a very defective product and that was sold nationally, and they are literally trying to replace probably 1 million, if not more, meters from San Diego to Naples, Florida. We call Collier County is replacing it at the rate of 10,000 a time. But that's only part of the problem, as I said. We also will have a brand new software program, a brand new billing program. We'll have much more control. The idea is with the new billing program, we will bill monthly with your approval. And that, in our opinion, will make it much easier too for residents to budget. Right now, it's difficult for some people to budget quarterly payments that are at least $80. That's our new minimum, plus flow. So we will be able to do that at a 1/3 rate instead of full 3 months per quarter. So it's really a whole different way of approaching our water billing operation.
And I think I've talked about what we did last time when we talked about this. We attempted to negotiate with Mueller to let them buy themselves out of their obligation to provide with, replacement meters, because obviously that costs them money. And so, well, why don't you just give us a sum of money and we'll relieve you of your obligation? And they wouldn't negotiate that either. They said, we're just gonna provide you.
That's because that was the way the warranty was spelled out on.
Oh yeah, the one thing they had to do was that, but that obviously cost them money to do it. And we piggybacked the Collier County contract, so we couldn't change the contract. We were stuck with that contract. But we just tried to say, look, we'll let you out of your warranty obligation, just pay us some money. We may go do something else. But they wouldn't do that. So the city may be able to take the meters they've received and possibly sell them. Maybe somebody who still uses them can use those.
And perhaps the ones that when we replace them, the ones we take out of the ground, that are defective, we can get replaced and sell those too.
Yeah, I mean,
That would
they
make
still,
sense.
they're not relieved of their obligation to replace it.
Right. But I wouldn't think they would have to replace currently operating ones, but anything that's
Well,
defective.
They don't replace them until we send them to them, and they confirm they're defective for that reason, then they send us a replacement. So they would not replace an operating meter.
Okay, we still have a,
Roger, just a second. Roger, do you need more time to get resolved with this? I mean, I know I've been over 6 ways to Sunday, and my initial focus was to have the companies responsible to take care of it. The way they were taking care of it, I was not happy with. I wasn't sure about, as Lee talked about, software. I did not like the length of time it was going to take to get everything replaced. And the fact that we had to do the work on this side of this, so there's still a cost to us, not to mention the cost of the water that's not being paid for by consumers. So at the end of the day, that's why I leaned towards going in this direction. But I understand what you're saying, that, when he came back to us and let us know that 60% of this, including, this all can be done at once. We will still have the same exposure to it. We just weren't saving that much at the end.
Well, we got the replacement Mueller meters in the shop to replace the defective ones. We just need to have somebody certified to do it. The information to me was all one way presented. We were given a lot of information and everything, but the counterpart really was based on what they told us was the information. And since that time, I've discovered that what they were offering us to replace was actually a better deal. But it's created such a delay now from that process than what was originally presented. And
Well, it's my understanding that the meter that they were going to replace it with was upgraded, was a better meter, well, without a doubt.
Mueller's replacement is an upgrade over the initial ones that they sent out.
Correct.
So, and from what I understand, they have all the same capabilities as the census ones do. And I think there's just a program that you gotta buy to upgrade their program.
Sounds like you would then have to upgrade all of the currently working meters.
No, it's just the program. They all work on the program currently.
If they're putting in an upgraded meter that allows them to use the new program, doesn't sound like that. But maybe you're right, I don't know.
You upgrade the program. It's Mueller's program, we just upgraded to be able to handle the new meters.
And is
So
that
there won't
possible?
all be.
There's always a cost in upgrading program.
Right.
But they're not all gonna be new meters. The only meters that will be new under the warranty program are the ones that broke. They all didn't break.
Right,
So we're gonna have some old meters and some new.
right. And as the ones that are still new in the box goes out and gets replaced in the thing, when they go bad, they get pulled and get sent in and get replaced by the upgrade.
No, that's not how the warranty works. They have to break, they want to, the ones that are in the storage that we have, new meters from Mueller, would have been, because we've taken meters off that was defective, mailed them to Mueller, and they sent us replacement ones that we just did not install back because we decided, the commission decided to go a different direction. As future ones break, if they break outside the warranty period, Mueller's not gonna replace those.
Correct.
They're only replacing the ones that are breaking now because it's within the warranty period. They're, and I can go back and look to see what the warranty period is.
If there's a manufactured defect in a product that's causing them to go bad,
Within the warranty period.
well, then you can discuss it because they already know that there's a problem with this series of meters. You go back to them and say, look, we want you to extend your warranty as part of this program for all the meters from this series until we make sure that they're all working and good. If you can negotiate deals with them, change.
Oh, I tried to negotiate them out of their warranty and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't give us cash instead. But the issue, I believe what the issue was, it had to do with the battery. The battery was dying. So the Mueller meter could fail for some other reason other than the battery, and then that's not the defect issue that everybody is seeing. They're seeing that these meters, the battery on some of them are wearing out very quickly and dying, so they're no longer reading and transmitting. And that's my understanding of what the defect was.
That's a problem with lithium batteries everywhere.
Could be, but I'm just saying that we may end up with a situation, and it really doesn't matter to me what y'all do, but you may end up with a situation where you have old meters. I don't want you to think that all of the meters in the city are going to be replaced by Mueller under the warranty. That's the thought. I don't want you to have that thought. Under the warranty, they will replace the defective meters that become defective during the warranty period, but that may not be all the meters.
Oh, I know that.
So.
Well, it's my understanding that, I'm sorry, Mr. Minister.
I just want to interject, this particular resolution, as I indicated earlier, is going into a packet that is already into the state, SRF people, for funding in February. And the grant program that provides the relief benefit are only issued in February and in August. So it's incumbent upon us to get this matter approved tonight, get the resolution, get into the funding cycle for February, and you still have the option after that to reject the financing if you want to. You still have the ability to accept or reject their financing offer. It's basically a loan that you'll have to approve. So you have another opportunity to say you don't want the money, and that's the time Roger needs for the research. But I would hesitate to delay it now because we're all going to miss out on 6 months of time should you decide to stay with the program.
We wouldn't even be having this conversation right now had this been advertised properly to begin with.
Correct?
I'm sorry, somebody not hearing me?
I heard you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Not for me.
All in favor of adopting resolution number 2023-03, say aye.
Second it.
I'm sorry, what?
Nobody seconded.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2023-03. All in favor, say aye.
Nay.
So So the motion carries with one nay from Commissioner Acker. Item 8, old business. Mr. Visser, do you have any old business you want to cover?
No, not really.
The only thing that I did want to address in old business then is Melissa Park. I understand that we put out requests for bids and we received none, which is fairly unusual. Would you fill us in on that?
Yes, I was gonna talk about that later on, but that's fine, we do
Sorry.
that. We did advertise during the Thanksgiving, Christmas period for the playground equipment. You recall, it has a $62,000 CDBG grant as a base funding. We estimated the total cost to be approximately $250,000. That was put out on the street, with a system called Demand Star. It is a national internet-based program. All municipalities and counties use it, and all vendors are privy to it as well. And they download the RFP if they see one they want to bid on. And our particular RFP was downloaded on 19 firms. So we know the RFP was out. We have some reasons why they were given to us why it was not bid. Complexity of the RFP, we gave them options for alternatives, and we also were combating time of the year, not only between Thanksgiving and Christmas, but at the end of the calendar year is the time that all of the major projects are fighting to get completed by January 1st. So we're fighting any timeframes of new business coming in. Plus, there is a tremendous amount of money, as you might know, from the ARPA funds that all cities, counties, and states received. As I recall, more than $1 billion to all of those entities, which gave cities, counties, and states tremendous opportunities to go out for all sorts of projects, including playgrounds. So we believe that the market was full of RFPs at that particular time, and we'll still fight that same battle on ARPA money. But we have since gone out for rebidding it. We've simplified the RFP process. We've removed any alternates. We've gone out with a particular, not particular brand or style. We've spec the major components of what we're looking for in the playground, and we're anxious to see what kind of response we get from that. But that'll be late January when I know that.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring people up to speed as to where we were on that. Item 9, new business, or the PLDRC needs to be referred to the property rights ordinance.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, Member Commission, this particular one, actually, maybe the city attorney should opine on, but particularly, Florida Constitution recently amended, making it mandatory for all cities and counties to adopt into their comp plan what's called the property rights section in the comp plan. Basically, it just says, it doesn't say a whole heck of a lot, maybe it should. It is basically a statement of policy rather than anything else. And we are required to adopt it and inject it into the comp plan. To do so, it needs to refer to the PLDRC. I would point out that both of these, A and B, are ministerial acts of the commission. You really have no choice but to refer them to the PLDRC under our land development regulations. They are entitled to go to that group for review and recommendation back to you. So these are on for notification to the public as much as anything else. They both need to be referred to the PLDRC, which will meet on the 23rd of January at 7 p.m. to hear both matters. And then they will write up a report and come back to you in February.
And this would be ordinance 2023-01.
Yes.
And
02 is the application by the developers of the auto mall.
Okay, so let's just go with 01 for now. That was gonna be my question, so thank you. So do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2023-01?
I have a motion to approve, it's boilerplate, state's already said this is what we have to do.
Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Basso, a second from Commissioner Rutledge. Do we need to read this ordinance by title?
No, you're not voting on it really. I mean, really, you're not adopting it, you're just referring it, so it doesn't need to be. This is kind of unique, it doesn't really need to be here, so, and you're just making motions to refer it. You know.
All in favor that we do this ridiculous act, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
I don't want to call it exact.
No, I don't mean ridiculous. I mean, this is action that's action that we have to do.
I'll say yes if we're referring it, but I'm not gonna say yes to a ridiculous act.
Oh, fair enough. I withdrew that. Okay. Item B then is continuing into the employment center. Who would like to introduce that?
Okay, as everybody in the room, I'm sure, is familiar with, many years ago, starting in 2018, there was a program to develop what became at that time known as the Automall Project on the other side of I-4. And for private reasons, having nothing to do with government, that project did not come to fruition. The developer, actually the owner of that property, has now come to the city as they are entitled to under land development regulations, and are proposing a change in the comp plan that would allow the change from commercial, exclusively commercial, I would point out, development in the employment center zone, which is the property again on the west side of I-4 in the city, and change that to exclusively residential. And that is a major shift. I'm not trying to editorialize as much as point out that it is an important decision that the PLDRC will need to make in terms of a recommendation back to you. Ultimately, it will be an important decision of the commission to accept or reject their recommendation, no matter what it is. If the commission accepts that recommendation and adopts the ordinance on first reading, will then have to be sent to the state for their review of the ordinance for compliance with our comp plan and state policies. And then we'll need to come back to you in a rather slow process, I would tell you. It's approximately 6 months between your first reading and if it comes back to you for second reading in an acceptable form, then you'll have the opportunity at the second reading to accept or reject that particular ordinance. So this starts the process. As I indicated, the PLDRC will meet on the 23rd of January, which is the present plan at 7 p.m. It's an extremely important meeting for the public, because I've told you before on numerous occasions, this particular document, the comprehensive plan, is the citizens' vision of how they would like to see the city develop to the year 2035. It is based strictly on citizen desires and visions. It's not based on reasonable and competent evidence of engineers or architects or anything else like that. It is as they call it, a homemade document, but it is a document that is the foundation of the zoning and the ultimate development of the community. So very, very important review process that will be entered into on January 23rd. And then again, it will come back after their recommendation for the commission to accept or reject on first reading. And it'll go from there. So, but as the city attorney pointed out, this is not a decision of the commission to transmit or not, because our land development code does provide that a developer, a private citizen, can recommend this change, and the process is to go right to the PLDRC. So it's really here for your information and information of the public.
So no action needs to be taken at this time?
Well, I would think just to refer would be appropriate, but it's not necessary.
Shall we refer this to the PLDRC?
I have a
I think
question.
we have a choice there.
Go ahead.
If this is, the staff recommendation to deny this change, if this change does not happen, does that put an end to, Mr. Hurley's, desire to do the complex over there that, I think the last thing we did when we left this meeting after a 4-1 vote not to do it was to go out to James Moore and have them bring back a comprehensive look at what is it going to cost us? Is this a financial gain to the city, or is it net neutral?
That,
In other words, my question is, does this preclude that process from
No.
continuing? No.
Well, it's part of
okay.
it. Are you talking about the analysis, financial analysis?
Yeah, no, ultimately, the financial analysis is a piece of the puzzle, but if we deny this, is it a done deal? Or does that have to be done in order for that to continue to have, life?
If ultimately it goes through the planning board and it comes to you for what's called the transmittal hearing, and if you say, oh, no, we are not adopting it on first reading, then that particular issue of allowing residential in the EC is over. That's done. It's not gonna go further unless they try to sue the city or something like that. But absent that, there really is no appeal process to take this. But even if the commission votes no the first time, they could still vote no the second time. But I think, I have to defer to Lee, but you may have that financial analysis that's part of that first decision you make.
Okay.
Yeah, the financial analysis was really due late this afternoon, but it'll be here probably tomorrow.
So, you'll have that information, and it's a policy decision. This is legislative action, it's a policy decision for y'all to decide, the vision, the direction to go based on citizen input of what's gonna happen over there in the EC, that part of the EC. And basically what you are authorizing, your vision would be changing to go from, and it's not just the auto wall, don't think of it that way.
Right.
It was the land use company says it's commercial. This will now allow residential there. Now, the EC is actually bigger than where this particular project is.
Gotcha.
And it's only where this project is that will, as proposed, as it comes through, that will allow residential. The balance of the EC will remain commercial absent changes in the future, but that would be harder to change because some of that area, even though it's in Lake Helen, it's in the EC, it's also subject to the Victoria Park DRI. And so that would also require a change in the DRI. So, but ultimately, it's your policy decision to say, do you want residential in that area of the EC? That's a policy decision. Now, once you make that policy decision, then we start coming back to the regulations and the specifics of how that, will be developed. A new development agreement and all those other things. But we got to start the policy decision change process first. And ultimately, what will happen is, if you were to approve it on first reading, hypothetical here, and as Lee said, it goes to the state, and they go through a review process, and that takes a while. And then they will send us back comments. During that process, we will begin working on the rewriting language in our land development regulations that would allow the proposed development, and also coming up with a rezoning ordinance, a new rezoning ordinance with a new development agreement for that particular project. The intent is to go through the planning board on those, come back for first reading on those also before you. And then we sit and wait to hear back from the state. And then at one meeting, the vision right now, I shouldn't say vision, because the plan right now is to get the comments back from the state. We will bring the entire package to you at a meeting, and the comp plan change will be that everything will be for second reading. Comp plan change is just called the adoption hearing. That would be the first thing. We would incorporate the comments from the state and all other agencies into a final product on the comprehensive plan. That will be before you. If you approve that, we will then do second reading on the ordinance amending the land development regulations to allow this particular development. If you approve that, then the third thing you will approve is the actual rezoning ordinance that allows this particular development with a new development agreement. There will be effective dates in these ordinances because the comp plan change does not become effective immediately. It's got to go back to the state. We cannot have any regulations or development that's inconsistent with our comp plan. So our ordinance modifying our development regulations will have an effective date of when the comp plan becomes effective. And then our rezoning, which is based on the land development regulations, will have an effective date of when that redevelopment, the rewrite of the redevelopment regulations or the development regulations takes effect. So it's like a domino. Everything is dominoed off the comp plan. So that's kind of a preview of coming attractions. But if you say no on first reading of the transmittal, everything I just explained does not happen.
So are we looking for that no now, or are we looking to send, we're looking to send it to the PLDRC and then receive back their report, and then we will make that determination?
Then it'll come before you for transmittal hearing, the applicant will be here, presentations will be made, and you will do first reading of that ordinance, and then you will have your official vote on that issue.
So we are now officially informed as to what's working its way through the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
And when I say we, it's everybody knows.
And there's been a lot of public asked questions, what's going on.
Sure.
Not to me, but to me and staff and maybe to y'all. And so I guess there was a feeling that it'd be nice to publicly do this to let everybody know what we're doing. But I'll say that this isn't something that normally is done. We don't say, hey, this is going to the planning board. You know, it's going there. Whether you all vote, you can vote no to refer, it's still going there. So, and that's why it doesn't really, a vote's not really necessary.
Well, thank you. Now we have the new items, item 9C, the public works truck.
Thank you. I wanted to address the public works truck that was taken off site and was handled by a public works employee. And I was hoping that staff could give a little more information about who authorized that and what actions have been taken since that.
Okay. The particular vehicle had been in our, trying to think of a nice word for it, junk pile, for some time. We have not sold any things from that junk pile since I've been here, so it's been here at least that long, 2 years, and probably much longer than that. We are incidentally making arrangements to have equipment, because it's more than just vehicles, in the junk pile, taken to an auction house, and I expect we'll actually have some revenue from the sale of that surplus material, which is a nice way of saying it. The particular vehicle in question, you can't appreciate unless you see it how terrible condition it is. The taillights are off, the stuff is stored in the bed of it, the windows are out. The idea was, though, that the main problem with the truck was the transmission that froze up. A particular employee said, I have a transmission, or that same year Dodge, I think it would fit. And I said, okay, see if it can fit, we can put it back in service. Took it to a residence here, not his, in the city. It did not fit, and when it didn't fit, we brought it back, and it's still sitting in the junk pile.
So was this an employee volunteering or was this a donation that was given?
I'm sorry.
Was this an employee volunteering or was this a donation that was made to the city?
No, it was always city property. The employee took it to repair it rather than do so at the office and tie up a bay at the public works area. That's not where the transmission was. But it never left the possession of the city, and it was returned to the city when it found it couldn't be fixed. I quite frankly think the individual was very optimistic, I think it could be fixed because as I indicated, you know, it was taillights, it was windows, it was dashboard. This truck was sick in many, many ways. And transmission probably the most expensive, but the least of its problems.
So do we have record of the condition of the truck when it left and when it returned? So we know it was in the same condition returned?
And not photographic evidence, visual memories. It had been there for 2 years. It was pretty well tied up, you know, chewed up with, just from being out there in the weather and not protected and the windows out, et cetera. So, but anyway, no, I don't have anything to prove what it looked like before, what it looked like after.
Is this something that could have been done in our mechanic shop over Public Works instead of being taken off site?
We're not equipped to do heavy transmission work. We do oil changes, we do something maybe as exciting as brake replacements. We certainly do a lot of lawnmower type replacement, material replacement, but nothing like, we have a list, but we don't try to do engines, transmissions, things like that. That's really too far beyond our talents as well.
So I know I previously shared my concern about this incident with you, and I want to reiterate that this is of deep concern to me that we had an employee take this off-site. The optics of it, number one, are not very good, and also I don't believe we should be operating that way. I believe we have a policy for surplusing our old equipment and servicing our old equipment, and I'd like to review that and see has there been any action taken? Who authorized this action?
The employee I talked to told me that what he wanted to do, and I said he could attempt to do it, but I asked him not to do it at the Public Works garage. Not to bind up our equipment and time, and transmission wasn't there, as I indicated, it was at a residence, a relative of the employee, an attempt to do it there where we had equipment to do it. Turns out it didn't fit and it was returned. But there was, as you talked about the optics, the individual did cover over the seal of the city, which was regrettable because it made it look sneaky. And everybody in the city knows everything is known to everybody. It's not a secret. So it gave the wrong impression, and that's unfortunate.
Was the truck operational when it left?
No,
So do we know who paid for the towing?
we didn't know that. Yeah.
So who can we hold accountable for this?
I'm
Is it, who are we holding accountable for this? Because it seems that if you gave the directive, this is something that we need to do accountable for.
The director to do what?
To take the item off-site and to work on it.
As I said, the employee volunteered to do it. I asked him not to do it on-site, to tie up our equipment and time. And he said he volunteered to do it on his time, and he transported it on-site to do it. So I guess, I'm not sure I understand the question. If anybody's at fault, it's probably
It just shows a lapse in judgment, in my opinion, when we have a policy on how we surplus out on unoperational vehicles and old equipment. So I'd like to see that we could review a list of items that need to be surplus and gone for auction. But also in this instance, I don't know the rest of the commission, Mayor, how you all feel about this, but this is not something that I want to pass this by. This is of great concern to me. And so I don't know if you all have any input on how you'd like to move forward before I continue.
I agree with you. I think the whole thing was hokey.
My only question would be, was he repairing it to then assume ownership of it, or was he repairing it to bring it back to the city and potentially have us buy the transmission from him?
The idea was he was going to repair it to allow us to return to service, which I thought was a little skeptical because it really is in bad shape. But that was the idea, and he wanted to volunteer. We do have a history that we're trying to discourage, quite frankly, of maintaining very, very old equipment and making it do rather than buying new equipment and having subservice. So hopefully that will be the last version of that particular attempt, because it just turned out to be fruitless and an example of why we shouldn't try to do that.
You know, I do think that the employees' mindset was in the right place. But I believe, and I could be mistaken, this may be a question for our city attorney. I don't believe that our employees can make a donation of that kind without a receipt or a contract in place. So that's where I'm kind of hung up. I think we need to do something.
You mean donating the transmission to the city?
Donating the time and any, not equipment, the parts that are required to make that, would be, I guess they would be considered an in-kind donation to the city, and I don't, was there a contract? Was there a limit? I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity here, on this situation. It shows, I think we should take some type of action. I don't think we should let this.
Any further discussion?
Well, I do know that we have other employees that go out to Public Works and strip parts off of vehicles on their own time and fix things out there. So, I mean, it's kind of like being done.
So maybe this is something, maybe this is a symptom of a larger issue, but it's one I certainly think we should address, if that's ongoing. If that's,
I don't mean to sidelight the conversation, but Commissioner Bishop is absolutely correct. The Public Works facility was relatively open. We've done a number of things to secure the facility now, but we do know there were individuals who had the code and go out at night and do things with surplus equipment, knowing they were surplus and were to be disposed of anyway, et cetera, et cetera. But now we have put a halt to that, and as soon as we can sell the surplus equipment we have on site, it'll be a regular event to when we have equipment to sell, we'll go ahead and sell it. And the reason it's taken so long, I will point out, is we have 4 police cars out there that have to have their radios and mic wires removed, and the chief is using one of his police officers who is talented in that area, but doesn't have a lot of time to do it. So when that's accomplished, and that should be accomplished soon, we're going to dispose of all the equipment. This is not something that will be ongoing, should be ongoing, will be permitted ongoing. It's the last hurrah of dealing with surplus equipment by anybody from the city.
Does that help allay any of your concerns or not? It may not.
I think the policy needs to be reviewed between what Charlene put in and what other put in. It's allowing people just to go out there and scrap parts off of the vehicles that are supposedly going up for auction deteriorates their value for the auction. And I think we have a policy in place that shouldn't be done. It needs to be adhered to. We seem to have a lot of policies that are being bypassed just to accommodate people's requests, and it needs to stop.
It's more than a policy, it's called theft. Because you're absolutely right, the parts stripped off vehicles are reducing the value of that vehicle, and they're taking things that are really city property. So it is theft. We do have a lot of cameras out there.
defacing property with spray painting over emblems, and then any other modifications that were made to the vehicle that we're unaware of at this point. Not saying that happened in this instance, but in other instances that have been brought to light, it's a great concern. I'd like to bring this back, as soon as possible to review and take action on this.
I will have a list on February's agenda for the surplus equipment for you to declare surplus, so we can transmit it to the auction yard. And that would be a appropriate time to talk about that.
And could I also ask, why was it in surplus for 2 years? Why did it sit for 2 years?
That truck sat for a lot longer than 2 years.
That's a considerable
That truck's
amount
been
of
there for
time.
probably 10 years.
Wow.
It's, I can't explain why it lasted that long. I can only count the last 2, but I will tell you that it's not unusual for municipal, operations to surplus something. It doesn't fit their needs, they put it in a pile, and they usually notify finance department, and tell them to get rid of it. And it's the last thing on their list to do, and it just sits there, and sits there, and sits there. I have been in another city where we've had auctions for the first time ever, and sold equipment that had been there for at least 30 years. I mean, it just, yeah, it's not good.
In all fairness, when you have a city of our size being as modest as we are, we have a history here of not throwing stuff out. I mean, it's an old pioneer, frontiersman's mentality. Some of what's going on in our community is we're moving from, a town that worked with volunteers, people donating, to, complete boilerplate policies, procedures, et cetera. And some of these things are growing pains. You hit the nail on the head right out of the gate when you said the optics of it are good. You couldn't be more right about that. There's 2 things that could be happening here. One, you could be having an employee that goes over and above the call of duty to do something for their city, and no good deed goes unpunished. You could also have an employee that literally stole something and took it and was going to consume it for themselves. You could have a hybrid of that, where somebody said, I've been out there in the jump fire for 10 years, you want to take it. So, at the end of the day, none of the optics of those are good. So, I believe in the big policy scenario, you're spot on. I think this particular incident, that vehicle probably wasn't sold before now, because you wouldn't have got as much money for it by selling it as you would have been able to get a part or something off of it down the road. So too much has gone under the water since our last public works director stepped down, and there's a lot of fumbling along that has happened. It's as much our fault as anybody else's, not replacing that person immediately and making sure we had good lines of management all the way through. But that's getting fixed. And I think some of these other things, just like this, where stuff is falling through the cracks and it really looks bad. But I think it looks worse than what it really is. That's my feel. I'm not sure what we can do other than this, make sure that there's processes and procedures that are in place and there's a management stream in place to execute those things. That's what we really need to do, I think, at the end of the day, to go forward and make sure that something of real value doesn't leave us.
And you're certainly, of course, welcome, I guess, for lack of a better word, to bring forward any suggestions or actions that you'd like to be taken. Because I understand your concern over this. So if you want to look into it further, or maybe work with staff on finding some ways to make the future better.
I'll bring that back, in my commissioner report, as what I think should be done moving forward.
And I do have one blue card from Kelly Kraska.
Kelly Kraska, 616 John Street. I want to thank Commissioner Rutledge for bringing up this issue. It appears that at last month's last month's meeting, I guess we weren't aware of it, so I have brought it up. This shows a pattern of items that are going off for recycling or just disappearing underneath Mr. Evatt's care, his purview. The other object that I'm discussing, not only with the truck, was the playground equipment for Melissa Park. That equipment did not go to auction. It was not brought to the commission for discussion. It was taken to the recycling, and the money was told to be kept for sodas. Mr. Evatt even mentioned that in the previous meetings. So that is a pattern that we can look at. Now, as far as it comes to documentation of what the vehicle looked like before, we have plenty of cameras over there at William Well that would indicate what that truck looked like as it was leaving and as it was returned. If this truck was just given to the employee to work on with the transmission, one of two things. Why would it leave the city property? That's not a good enough answer with what Mr. Evatt had given us. Two, why were more items than just the transmission removed? And why was it spray painted over? What was that discussion between Mr. Evatt and this employee? Because it does not look good. Optics are not good at this at all. But not only that, there's a pattern for Mr. Evatt's behavior. So, as a citizen, I call for Mr. Evatt's resignation because he is therefore unable to control staff and make good judgment. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to respond if I could.
Sir.
Kelly, I'm confused about playground equipment at Melissa.
I apologize, I mean Mitchell.
There was playground equipment that was damaged by the tree that was removed.
We had the dome and the swing set that was removed. Where are the items from Mitchell Brothers?
The ones from Melissa, as you know, were sandblasted, powder coated, and ready to be reinstalled. The ones from Mitchell were deemed to be not salvageable. They were in poor shape.
But that call wasn't yours, Mr. Evatt. That's the commission's call for depreciating our equipment.
Well, to a certain extent, you're right, depending on the value, but, you know, we should discard probably more than we do. I mean, you can't bring all of that to the commission every time you want to do it.
And I would disagree. I think the city administrator certainly has a great deal of authority to do many things. And I think this might well fall into that. I haven't read through the policies and procedures on playground equipment that's being discontinued or decommissioned. But certainly we don't want the city administrator to come to us with every decision he has to make on a daily basis.
Just like the consent agenda, there's many items all in one. There's no reason why those items cannot be listed.
Well, I understand that was my answer to your question.
If I can, I happened to see the trailer as it was going down the road and seeing the equipment on it. The Jungle Gym dome had quite a few bent bars on it, would have been hazard to leave it there for the kids to play on. I don't know what the rest of the equipment underneath it looked like, because it was holding everything else on the trailer. But I know the Jungle Gym dome had quite a few bent bars on it and was hazard to play on.
Well, if I could, like to speak, maybe I could repeat what I heard you say. It wasn't about the fact that the equipment was removed, but rather what we did with the funding. Or
That
what
is-
we earned.
That is,
So I don't even think that the issue was necessarily removal of the faulty equipment, but it was about what did we do with the money that we received from that equipment that we surplus or sold or.
I'm not sure we received any money, we took it to the dump. it was just there. I don't know if we sold it for scrap metal, that's just like.
We had mentioned in previous meetings that you had sent Public Works with the equipment, and it's actually all the equipment was removed there. And asked when they went to the recycling center that they could keep the money to buy some soda. You've mentioned this in previous meetings, that the money,
Refresh my memory.
that the equipment that was recycled was enough money for employees to buy some soda, and that's what you had given it to.
To me, that sounds like a figure of speech, but I
I don't know how much it was, do you?
no, I don't. And,
It's not open.
point of order, we're going to move forward. Thank you. That is my job. It is my job as mayor to run meetings. It is not my job to allow any individual as much time as they want to discuss an item, or to discuss an item until they get satisfaction that they deem to be satisfaction. No can be an appropriate answer from this stage. My answer now is no, we are not going to proceed discussion in this matter. I think staff may want to come forward with an answer in the future. If they want to, they can, but I think we answered the questions that we were presented with. Mr. Preston, I apologize, I missed your blue card earlier when we were discussing item 9B. Did you want to go back to that?
No, since you sort of tabled that, sent to the PLDRC, then I'll reserve it.
I thought that might be the case, but I didn't want to.
No worries.
So, item 9B.
All right, I just want to say that it's not just under Lee that employees have been rogue, so he's not the bad, not paying attention here, it's been going on for a long time. Case in point, we have a potential EPA problem at Public Works. We have roughly 1,000 gallons of diesel, probably potentially $5,000 worth, sitting in an illegal tank that is not registered by the state of Florida. How long has that been there and why is it there? Nobody knows, apparently. Where did the tank come from? Where did the fuel come from? But I assure you, I bet you the city paid for that fuel. And now it's gonna have to be dumped. So we're gonna be out $5,000, at least.
Why would it have to be done?
Well, this is an EPA problem. That tank is not registered and that tank is practically rusting through.
But why would the fuel have to be dumped? Why can't you just run it?
If it's not good, it's been, where are you gonna put 1,000 gallons of fuel if we can't run it through that plant? And they have to test it to see if it's still good, because we don't know how long it's been sitting out there. Apparently nobody bothered to say, hey, to the city, oh, by the way, there's 1,000 gallons of diesel out here that needs to be used up. So they've been steadily getting fuel still delivered in the 500 gallon tank, because they won't pump it into that illegal tank. And they've stayed in buying fuel because nobody knew that 1,000 gallons was there, that we could have used up. Who didn't tell us that fuel was out there?
I don't know the answer to that question, obviously. I wasn't aware of the tank, although I did discuss it with the city administrator, I don't know, it was last week. That he brought that to my attention, and that was the first I became aware of it. I still don't quite understand why we can't use that. I mean, if we put it in a tractor and the tractor runs, I don't, that's pretty much a good test in my
Well,
mind.
no, they have to test that fuel to see if it's any good. Because it'll run your equipment if you put bad
That's
fuel.
why you have the filters on your equipment. And you can filter it as you take it out of the tank. It's really not that difficult a thing to do.
The EPA is going to dump the fuel and charge us to dump it if it's no good. They're gonna test it.
Oh, I don't know why that's the case. You say that with great authority, but I don't know why that would be the case.
It's in an illegal tank. It is an EPA.
I can see why we have to get rid of the tank. I get that.
What do you, okay, if we get rid of the tank, where are we gonna put 1,000 gallons of fuel?
We get rid of
It's diesel. It's diesel. It's diesel.
Yeah, we take it out of the tank and we use it.
But where?
We have tractors and equipment that we use.
And they said.
It might take a while to,
Before we get to getting rid of stuff and everything, can we get the tank inspected to see if it's even?
The EPA will be here in the morning to inspect it. They'll be here in the morning to inspect it.
Well, they got us inspected to meet the state standards, so.
That's right.
and I'm sure they have procedures and they'll let us know what those are.
That's exactly, and they said if we comply, there will be no fines.
Well, I'm glad they got people turning this in before we even have a tough discussion about it. Moving on
If you look
to,
at that tank, it looks like it's about to bust open on the bottom any time, and that's gonna be way more of a big EPA issue if we drop that fuel.
as I said, I've never laid eyes on the tank to my knowledge, and I don't know.
I've got photos right here if you'd like.
My point is that, well, I don't even need to make that point, never mind. I'm sure the EPA will tell us what we need to do according to their regulations, and I'm sure we'll follow their recommendations. Okay. Item 10, quasi-judicial hearing on the certificate of appropriateness. Do we have any ex parte communications from the commission?
Get it in time to get it.
Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to, on these certificates of appropriateness?
Like I was saying earlier, when Heather brought up, this package of stuff, I think we take them individually, and we go through them. The first one, which is for, the certificate of appropriateness for a fence at 154 North Lakeview Drive. And, the short resolution board recommended approval with two conditions. Supporting documents are included with this report. I make a motion to approve with the two conditions they suggested.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Basso, a second from Commissioner Eckert to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 154 North Lakeview. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. You want to work your way through them, or is that one?
I thought I would share the love when I. All right, the second one in the packet is at 395, C 391 West Pennsylvania Avenue. And this one is for Amy Poole. Once again, the historic board recommended approval. Supporting documents are included, the motion passed unanimously. I make a motion to approve the new pool at 391 West Pennsylvania Avenue.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Basso, a second from Commissioner Bishop to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 391 West Pennsylvania Avenue. Any discussion?
Yeah, fence and the pictures, that included in going around. I don't think so, because the next one has the screened in part that goes around.
No.
So I say, just having time to look through the whole thing.
I do understand.
Where I'm going slowly there.
I do understand.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
It looks like a birdcage right there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a screen enclosure instead of a fence around, which works.
All in favor of approval of the COA for 391 West Pennsylvania Avenue, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Perhaps we could take lots 4 and 8 of the Faith Grove subdivision at the same time, or however you'd like to do it.
No, that's fine. Because they're all under the same guidelines.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Lots 4 through 8.
No, it's just lots 4 and 8.
And 8. I make a motion to approve certificate of appropriateness for lots 4 and 8 in the Faith Grove subdivision. Approve with conditions suggested by the Historic Preservation Board.
Do I have a second?
I didn't see any conditions. Am I missing them?
Well,
Were there conditions?
I don't believe there are any conditions.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't see any.
I could be wrong.
I know in one of them I saw notation that all the conditions were satisfied. There's like an asterisk with conditions or down below said that the design professional satisfied all conditions. Actually, it's in both of them on page 1 of both reports.
The design consultant's report to the city commission says that on both of these, that all conditions were met and recommended approval is submitted.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
If I made the motion, I can't second it too, right?
Correct.
Just checking.
I can't second it either.
Yes, you can, that's the other.
No, I won't do that.
Okay, well, it's gonna kill me because I don't want these down there behind us, but I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second to approve the certificate of appropriateness for both lots 4 and lot 8 in the Faith Grove subdivision. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Oh, well, would you like to, sir?
Yeah, I was just looking at this lot 4 one, and I was looking for the setback from between it and lot 5. It looks like it's about 20 feet. Yeah,
Mr. Morales, I'm sure you heard the discussion on the dais that we really do need these reports in a more timely manner. Of course, sir. We do appreciate all we get from you.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner, thank you for your patience with me. I've had more good days than that, just happened to be one of the bad ones. By the end of the year, I took off half a month and just came back and slammed with work. So please accept my apologies, it's not gonna happen again.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I like it when it's.
Yeah. Okay, now move to public forum. And the only yellow card I have at this time is from Kelly Carrasco. Kelly, I'll introduce you by saying I wore my shirt. And we do appreciate very much the Stress Buster 5K. I think that's what you're here primarily to talk about. So take it away.
I'm just gonna give some stats. Kelly Nebraska is 616 Elm Street. For our 2022 5K, it was our 10th annual. We had 825 participants. That's up from last year.
Fantastic.
And we had raised our net was 25,127. And our gross after paying our invoice will be $9,631.40. So we had a very good turnout. I'd like to also mention that the temperature dropped down to 26 degrees upon the start, so everyone was really up. Our top male finisher overall was Juan Montalvo. He's 20 years old from Guyana, Puerto Rico, at 16 minutes, 59 seconds. And our top female finisher overall was Gabby Getz, also age 20, from Woodburn, Indiana, and her time was 18 minutes and 42 seconds. So we had a great run. We're going to be going ahead and getting the new I'm going ahead and get the new one for this year, to be brought in to census staff for review. Proposal. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Grassley. It was a great success. I don't think I was warmed up by the time those first two finishers were crossing the finish line. I was still shivering, but it was a wonderful event. It really was.
And it was very nice that the gym station did free pancakes for all the participants. And so after we were so cold, we came over there to get warm and had warm pancakes. So thank you.
Thank you, Gym Station, as well.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank someone that most of us don't know actually spearheaded and started this whole thing. The very first event that we had was brought to us by Trish Short. She's one of our citizens in this community. Quietly goes about doing what she does, never asks for a pat on the back. But this is really going to boom to the city, both in morale and both in financially. And I just want to go on record and say thank you to her. And, the city wants to come up with some sort of something at some point that will be very, very nice.
Appreciate that. I'd like to take a 10-minute recess. Like a 10-minute nap. I don't think it would be appropriate.
I've been eating one all day, actually. I know I would run to the bathroom, but I'm sitting right now.
Running is.
Well, not run, I'm not gonna run, but I'm not gonna go stand in line either.
I didn't run in that 5K either. I walked it. I never really did get one.
Oh my God. I didn't even do it.
But it was a nice thing. Yeah. It was almost, I almost missed it. A couple of years I realized after I got that. And we just, I used to run.
Yeah, right.
Running, my knees tell me no.
Was you running to something or away?
No, it was, back when running was fun.
Just.
Oh, I know. Back when running was fun.
Took one.
My dad always said, "Well, good sign." Wow, that time.
It's imitation, no, it's imitation.
Yeah.
Some stuff Dominique gave you. But you know what? Right, I'm like, I only took one because they're so big, but I think I'm gonna take a second one.
So make sure you don't take it out.
Right, yeah, no, it's not, it's coffee or tea.
Hello,
Hey, don't
Dr.
talk.
How are you this evening?
Don't talk. No, because you're on, you'll be audioed. Oh, are you? Okay, okay. You don't want to miss the fun stuff, public forum. Hey, what do you got in your pocket? Yes, please. If you have extras. Thank you. You're leaving now? Hey, Dominique, I took another one. I'll take them down too. So that was for you to take the audio, there's nothing else on it, was it? Yeah, well, they won't even have to use those anymore.
Yeah, we'll be so advanced for that.
Yeah.
Saying that somebody on that call several times.
Okay, yeah. You have it.
How much longer we'll be here? How much longer do we have to?
It's what's officially on the block, but
If it's open.
10 minutes before the guide.
that's what police said.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. Everything except when you had like feeling like a hot dog dinner, like pizza set up, it's like a football concession stand. Not even said somebody's in violation. So, you know, we looked at, Josh, approval of the drawing. Help you explain something
Ask the attorney a question. Thought I'd get a quick answer.
Good luck.
I'd like to reconvene. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. Continuing under public forum, I want to take have a couple more speakers. One, I'm just going to introduce myself. I've spoken with Mr. Lou Policy at some length. He has an interest in using the shuffleboard building as a Nautilus museum. And I told him that there were a great many people who had ideas for use of the shuffleboard facility, but that I would introduce the idea to the commission and to the public, that Mr. Halsey has numerous pieces of Nautilus equipment that he would be willing to donate to that. And just wanted to let you know of his offer, let you be thinking about that. I think we all know, Nautilus was a big part of the city for a while. It definitely would be, an appropriate thing to have a Nautilus museum in many ways, but it's definitely in a long list of things that are looking for opportunity to use that shuffleboard building for another purpose, or to repurpose that. Oh, there's a lot of issues there. And does anybody have any questions about that?
I do.
So is this something that we need to provide another volunteer to operate, or is this,
None of those questions have been answered.
okay?
It was just an idea. Mr. Halsey, if you'd like to address it, you can.
Please.
If you would, when you get to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Lou Hollis, and I actually came here to Lake Helen in 1979 to check out Nautilus. And I'll tell you something, Nautilus has an amazing impact around the world on the beautiful machines. And I feel that I owe something to Lake Helen. And I would like to also restore the shuffleboard thing to make it usable for people. I understand that it was pretty used and people liked it. And that way we can have two things there. And I would make sure to look after everyone.
Well, we thank you for your offer, and we'll take it under consideration. As I said, that's about the best we can do at first brush.
It's better than leaving it empty. Anyway, thank you.
One of our problems with the shuffleboard building is there's a lot of issues with it that needs to be upgraded and improved on before we can let anybody use it. So that's why it's been standing vacant a lot, because there's just so much work that's got to be done on it to bring it back up to standards to make it usable. So it's gonna be a while before anybody's gonna be able to get in there.
Well, the thing is, it can't be difficult, can't be expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
It is, that is true. Oh, cities can make anything expensive.
Oh, I see.
We did an initial look at the facility, several years ago. And, I mean, just an initial bring up the code, add additional bathrooms, remodel rooms, blah, 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 blah. The vision we were looking at, were not an extensive change in the footprint other than new bathrooms. But just new windows, doors, openings, the whole 9 yards. And at that time, we were looking at something between $250,000 and $500,000. And the reason that we're not working on it currently is because the city just doesn't have the funds to do it.
Yeah, but there's enough people in Lake Helen that are good tradesmen that would donate their time to patch it up.
There may be ways, and we'll think towards the future as to how we might be able to do the details. But I just wanted to introduce the concept. Thank you, Mr. House.
Thank you.
Have another request from Andre Medeiros. Sir, if you would like to come and address the commission.
My name is Andre Medeiros. I am the owner of AARD. I'm not here from the Mississippi, but the potential reason now that allows us to work in the city, discuss the possibility to have the area reparation on the law on the church in May. The result process and surveying and moving forward the whole process, and I think also some of my ideas for the application. I think each one of you because when we have a second enough for the due diligence with that. And in that conversation, I was down. I always have the impression that Lake Helen, potential looking good business, a beautiful city, and I go down. And I live in the area and there much growth on this side of the view. but then again, it's a beautiful city, a historic city, and wow, that's just a very good feeling for the type of business I'm in. A company that's worth for $20 million that's almost developed every year, and we already in industry, and the recreation industry is, really fit in this town here because most of the customers are 55 years old. It's a really good feeling with the lake now and the potential that can come into the town as a business, and after that, we get there. Secondly, then kind of a little bit disappointed when we also had to request a letter from the showing the API, also the engineer that tried to get all the paperwork moving forward was completely shut down. We're really told that not even had a chance to demonstrate the project and you guys and the potential that can be kind to the city. And also, I was trying to get the, we also reach out, request and to get a letter of the weekly calls of that zoning is. Also, we never got that too. We tried to reach the city. Me as a business, a professional business owner, for this time of the year, probably not the first. And I think is the I thought the hell was more open. And talking to Lee twice, the second meeting, and we realized that it was not a possibility now. We should only have to spend $30,000 and $112,000 invested on this project.
Does staff want to address the project or not? It's up to you. I didn't talk to you about that earlier. I apologize.
It's as I explained to the gentleman, I've met with him twice. It's a special exception use within the Gateway Commercial District. And it's strictly up to the commission to grant the special exception. And you have to be convinced that the operation they're proposing is in conformance with the special exception uses and the permitted uses. In your judgment, it's similar to, but not exactly the same. And my suggestion was you needed to inform the residents behind on Church Street what was going to happen or what they're proposing. There are operations that he needed to clear through FDOT for the entrance because they control a good share of the roadway, which is all common roadway, I might add, coming off the bridge. But I understand they've made some of those entrees and done some of that work already. They did have one engineering plan. Our planner said that with certain improvements to the site plan he saw, he did think it was within the permissible discretion of the commission to approve or disapprove. It's not something totally alien to that particular zoning district. It's been, I guess, a couple of weeks ago since we met with them. It's something that we intend to go forward with, but it is something that you need to know is strictly at your prerogative. We can do the staff work.
May I say something?
Yes.
We request multiple times the zone requirement letter to the city, the city never was given to us. Actually, reached out a few times. Also, EPI and the civil engineers has also done all the projects and also requested multiple times. And I would say we are a retail store. Well, we do that also, but we never got that requirement. What we request from the city.
I believe that all the zoning regulations and whatnot are just part of the public record.
Correct, and the public record is a retail store, what we are.
I'm sorry, I'm having
Retail store, we are in retail, and the city store is a zoning for retail. But was our first conversation in August, 6 months ago. Was not just myself inside of that room, it was 4 people besides me. We
it sounds like it's pretty clear that we have the support of, in this, the city so we can move forward. Otherwise, I would never spend $112,000 in deposit on the project like that. It would be a suicide.
Right, I understand.
There are, if we're talking about the same project, I think there's only one RV project that I won't worry about.
Could you pull your mic down?
There are underlying land use and zoning issues that have to be addressed before you're able to consider this, if we're talking about the same RV project, at least there's only one. But there's underlying land use and zoning issues that have to be addressed before any consideration can be given to a special exception. So they can't ask for a special exception the way the land use and zoning currently is on that property. Now, what most people do is they'll put a deposit on property with a due diligence period. And then during that due diligence period, they have the ability to go and deal with the city and make sure that they're able to use the property for what they intend to do. And if they can't, then they can cancel the contract and get their deposit back. That's how most people, or everybody, does it. So in this case, there would have to be land use and zoning addressed before we ever got to the question of special exception.
Just for the record, was requested from EPI and it was denied, verbally denied on the room say will not, let that move forward. Mr. Lee.
I'm just reading emails back and forth, so I know that there is underlying, we can't, no, we could not process a special exception because it could not be approved based on the land use and zoning. So the underlying land use and zoning has to change first before they can make the special exception.
Okay.
If we are talking about the same RV park, which I think we are.
Yeah, I believe so. I haven't seen any others either.
So,
But Mr. Administrator, you said you spoke with the city planner about potential.
Yeah, the city planner,
And if I'm going too far, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I didn't quite finish my question, or at least my thought. If I'm going too far down this path, Mr. City Administrator, if I'm going too far down the details of this, I'll be happy to stop. And perhaps I am. But if there's some information that the city planner has that would be helpful for the city commission to know.
the city planner was discussing the special exception uses for this particular property. The city attorney is saying, before you can get to that question, there's the question of the underlying land use in the comp plan that needs to be addressed and changed. And that would be a highly unusual situation to have a land use, city attorney's telling me residential with an overlying gateway commercial. That's just.
based on the planner's report, part of the land use is gateway employment. The other part is single-family residency residential. And that's what creates the issue.
Yeah.
Now, the zoning is gateway commercial district, probably going with that land use, and the other part is SFR3, which is a residential zoning, probably on the residential land use.
And this is one parcel of land and it has two different zones?
If we're talking about the same one, I assume it's multiple parcels.
Oh, it's multiple parcels.
So,
The single family parcel is intended to use for retention for the project, but I'm not sure that makes any difference. It would still be used commercial.
and I'll read to you what's in the planner's report, and I will also read to you my email that I sent. So, in the Gateway Employment District, per future land use element, commercial land use districts, all development within the Gateway Employment District are required to be developed under the Planned Development Commercial PDC zoning category. However, by rezoning to Planned Development Commercial, per the Land Development Code, section 2.17.01.1, PDC projects are required to provide for planned commercial centers with complementary compatible residential or industrial uses or both. Unless residential or industrial uses were included within the RV storage facility, it would not be permitted in the Gateway Employment District of the future land use map. Single-family low-density per future land use element, residential land use district A, this land use district does not permit commercial development. If any resolutions were found to the issue with the Gateway Employment District issue above, the parcel will need to be rezoned to allow for RV storage facility. So that's what I'm saying, there's underlying land use and zoning issues that have to be addressed before you can address the special exception.
For the records, we know RV storage, we're a retail store selling RVs.
It's not RV storage, it's RV repair
We
and
have the wrong
sales.
position, yes. I mean, there's a lot of people, even
But you still have the residential issue. And it's not gonna matter, you still have the residential land use and you have residential zoning. No commercial allowed on residential land use. So you still have that underlying issue. And with the Gateway future land use, you have to do the PCD, and the PCD requires industrial or residential. I think it's industrial or residential as part of it. So, I mean, we met, I didn't meet with him, but I talked with Lee and John, our planner, had emails back and forth. And I will read to you my last email. In preparation of the meeting with individuals proposing the RV storage business, so I have it wrong. I have reviewed John's zoning determination letter, which is attached. What John is saying is that the proposed site has two land uses, both of which create problems for what is proposed. These are issues that must be addressed before we ever evaluate the criteria for special exception. Part of the site has a future land use designation of single-family low density, which prohibits any use other than residential. Therefore, the future land use designation must be changed for this portion of the site. The remainder of the property has a future land use designation of Gateway Employment District. This future land use designation requires the zoning to be TC-D, which is planned development zoning, which requires a planned commercial center with compatible residential and/or industrial uses. John has raised concerns that there is not industrial or residential proposed. The language that John quoted from the TCD zoning appears to contemplate a mixed-use project. Therefore, in my opinion, we need to address both the future land use and zoning of the entire site and determine the appropriate future land use designation and zoning for the proposed project. If ultimately the RV storage is permitted, a permitted use, there would be no need for special exceptions. If we made it a permitted use, there would be no need for special exception anyway.
due respect, you know you have the wrong parcel there, right?
I don't know if I had the wrong parcel.
You do. You look at it, you got the wrong parcel.
Well, but there's two parcels that are involved. One of them I know that you said was.
No,
gonna be-
listen,
We have got the wrong parcel there, and we looked at that over, and they actually made a mistake, and they acknowledged the mistake in an email, I have that right now. We never received that, what Gigi's reading back right now, I never received that, although I never moved on. They also put the wrong parcel information there, that's part of the misconfusion, that's it.
Well, this is actually addresses 4 parcels.
No, it's 2 parcels. I mean, that's the same, you have the wrong information.
I don't think we're gonna solve that in tonight's meeting. I just tell the commission that I did speak with Mr. Viderios and went down and saw his business, and I'm very impressed with it. It'd be great, I think, to have here in Lake Helen. You'll have to work through these land use issues, with staff, because it's really not something that we can do.
I understand, just by the record, so the engineer in the day, I was saying, got offended for, jokes that was done that day, and I am I want a multi-million-dollar company. I did not appreciate the jokes that were saying that day, and, about listening to our engineer, he felt very offended, and I was impressed, the level of, they were saying that when I was kind of a little bit disappointed, after doing all that. And the way how we responded, we called 15 times and we never got a response actually to physically walk into the city. And we talked with someone, please, I need to talk with the city because we tried for already 3 days to reach out to the side, right? Because I had the deadline for get my deposit back because otherwise I would lose $112,000. But that wasn't possible, actually physically coming in and do all that, and finally got a meeting to get in the room, and my engineer being offended for a joke that I did not appreciate.
Well,
I'm sorry, I have to say that for the record, I mean, that's just me as a teacher, bringing business to the town. I just want everyone to know how possible this is being welcomed in the town in Dynamic.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez.
We'll be meeting with the developer, his engineer from I'm just concerned with the timeframe.
But I've looked at this a little bit, and I have a couple of concerns. One, when I look at a piece of commercial industrial property that's right up against residential, there's something that's called transitional commercial, and it's usually a softer, more gentle existence, a flower shop, and if this is not that, and I think it creates an issue for the residents of that community. It's the second, the bigger one, is I wouldn't even consider looking at this until there was a traffic study. Because once DOT blocked the cross, when the last work that was done there, see anybody that's gone down Orange Camp and Church Street going from the opposite direction, you can't just turn and go across, which means the traffic would have to go down to Victoria, in through, come around, and I don't know how you solve that problem. Again, like you said, county road, DOT's involved. I just, at the end of the day, I feel bad, as much as I would love to see something like this on the other side of the interstate, and it become a revenue stream for the city of Lake County. I just don't think it's a good location where it's at.
Well, we can work as a staff to bring the issues to your attention, but obviously it's, those questions that be resolved by the PLDRC and yourselves to make the project or allow the project to go forward. But it is a complex site plan. The last site plan that I saw did have a single family SFR3 lot that was going to be used for retention pond for the project. And so, anyway, but the mayor's like, we're not going to solve this one tonight.
I just wanted to, we all had gotten an email on this project, and I just wanted to address it a little bit. I think what I had done as far as visiting with Mr. Medeiros and seeing his business, it is a very nice business. I agree, there's major considerations on this particular piece of property. And we talked about those, and he wanted to come to the commission and introduce himself to us, and I told him we have public forum and he could do that. So that's what we just did. And thank you, Mr. Medeiros. I hope it could work out. I'm very hopeful that it could work out. I don't know the law, and all of that stuff is not in my purview. And I hope that you get satisfaction though to your questions. I think we owe anybody looking for answers, we owe them timely responses.
Thank you very much.
Certainly. Next thing is commission reports by zone. Commissioners, zone 1.
Okay, so mine is a little more, serious, I guess, so I want to preview the conversation with that. I already had a conversation with our city administrator, in regards to this, but, it's something that I think we, as commissioners and mayor, need to discuss here. I've had some recent concerns about the leadership that we've been seeing, and, there have been, I think some of them are coming from the fact that we don't have a public works director, and so a lot of it is oversight or too much work where their attention is being pulled, but also, a lot of them are symptoms of a larger issue, in my opinion, and show a trend. So I would like to propose a workshop to discuss the concerns that I have and see if you all would be amenable to that.
So you want to have a workshop to discuss leadership and
how to move forward collectively or.
I'd actually, I don't mean to hijack this at all. I think it fits right into the where if you look down on your agenda, 13, A, or in 2, long range commission goals. Long range is a relative thing, but certainly we definitely, I want to be able to discuss some of those things, so I think it would fit right into this, workshop that I'm also planning. I think it would be wonderful. Anybody else have any ideas on?
I concur.
Okay.
So yes, is my answer, that the next workshop we have, which we'll be having, will definitely include that.
Okay.
Make a workshop longer.
That's okay.
Well, once they get beyond 4 hours, you're gonna lose me.
You already
Fair
got 2 topics for the next workshop.
I know, that's walking into and going, I'm sorry, third.
But this one's very important. And
Yeah.
it is. I concur. I would support your mission.
So one of the things that we always project on and try to emphasize in everything is having open government. And it seems like the more research I do in trying to find things, that there's a lot of stuff that is hidden. Recently, within the past couple of months, I was doing some more research on some of our building ordinances and stuff, with building codes and stuff like that in the, what's that, the Unicode program. And I wanted to look up some history on a couple items, and it said that we don't pay for that service. And so being able to reference back to past codes that were changed by ordinance makes it very difficult. And I know when I did some permitting requests and everything back in 2009, the codes were different than what they are now. But if you're able to find, if staff is able to find any of our past codes that I can get copies of, so I can do a comparison between all the changes between 2000 and now, to see the process and see how we've changed and which direction our codes are going in, to give me a better idea on how to do my job. I'd appreciate it.
Roger, didn't we send you
Sent me 2015.
well, we had pre-2018 is what I said.
Yeah, those 2015 codes, but
If I
they're
could
almost similar with a few little changes to.
If I could explain what happened, it wasn't an issue of not paying for a service. When actually I was hired, one of the things I strongly recommended the city do was go to Unicode, because it puts your regulations, they codify it, it's on the internet, anybody can look at it, it's kept up to date. So when they looked into when staff looked into going to Unicode, prior to that, and I think that might be one of the things that was sent to you, the prior city attorney they did their own codification. And so anytime the city would adopt an ordinance, I guess it would go to the city attorney, and the city attorney would rewrite this document, and then that would be your codification. Unicode said if you want us to go back and review all of your ordinances and come up with a new codification for you, then it was going to cost a certain amount of money, and it was going to be a lot of money because they were going to go back through it. And they said option 2 is you can go through and re-adopt all your current regulations, and we will just codify your current regulations. And that was going to be significantly cheaper. So basically Becky and I, mainly Becky, would go through and review each code, because staff had talked about wanting to review all the codes anyway. So we took the opportunity to go through each code and review. If there were no changes necessary, we adopted as it was. If there were changes, they were submitted to the city commission with strike-throughs and underlines as to what their changes were, and that was done for every section of the code. And then we ultimately submitted that to Unicode that resulted in the codification that was done. And there you could probably find every ordinance that was done that changed every section or adopted every section. It would have all the changes that were done to the current regulations at that time. not a historical analysis of all of them. But so from Municode standpoint, Municipal Code Corporation, from their perspective, their regulations, their book starts when we adopted the ordinance and sent it to them. Now, as we amend these ordinances going forward, it will now have a history because they have it, and it's easy for them to document the history. It was going to be very expensive for them to recreate our history. We're going to have to send them all of the ordinances we had adopted over time for them to recreate the history of what our ordinances were. And the city commission decided it was not worth spending that much money.
When was that decision made? Approximately.
I would say sometime between, I started working here in 2015, and we started adopting them in maybe 2018, you said, or 17, 18. So 2015 to 2018, that decision was made. And we started just going through and reviewing and adopting every code section again. And then that was submitted to Municode. And that was also around the same time that the city did a land development code rewrite when they also redid their comprehensive plan. So it kind of coincided with that. We were redoing both codes together.
Roger, I may be able to help you when I was first elected. I got a complete copy of all the code and stuff. Things that was maybe 05 or something like that.
Because I don't want to create any expense for the city to pull up, because I'm just looking for the history of the codes and
I'll be
stuff.
happy to give you that.
So if you can just give me a copy of it, that'd be
You
fine.
can have it because it's mostly obsolete now anyway, but at least it'll be a
And it'll give it a historical reference starting point.
It'll get you back 15, 16 years ago. So.
Well, the city should still, as a public record, have all the ordinances, I would think. Going
Probably in that spot road.
Yeah, I mean, they should still have it, but it's, that's a very effective way to review the code for purposes of telling someone who comes in, what can I do? I gotta go through all these and see what the current things say and look at all the changes. That's the benefit of Unicode. It updates it, keeps it current for you. From a historic, going forward from 2017, 18 forward, it will give you the historical information about the ordinance number, the date change, something in that section. But going before that date, it was gonna be extremely expensive for the city. But I probably have on my email all the emails from Becky saying, here's section such and such of the code, here's section such and such of the code, and it would have the changes in our email exchanges. I'm sure the city has it too. But if you want to look at those, I can get that too. That's not a problem. But if maybe what Rick is offering would be more helpful for you.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Go with that one, brother.
Does that conclude your report?
Yeah, most of the other stuff I can get with Leon later.
Don't agree?
Where do you start? I'm just gonna say this. I learned a long time ago when I was in business, I was working for before I went into business, I was working for somebody else, that when I went to fire an employee, my boss told me, he says, make sure you know what your replacement is before you get rid of somebody. And before you get rid of somebody, judge them by their book of knowledge, not the latest mistake that they made. None of us are perfect. No one. And so to treat staff, to treat one another with a level of respect and allow them the space to move on, I think is the right way government should work. It's polite, it's harmonious, it's a group of men. So that's all I have to say this month.
Thank you. So on the floor?
We're firing somebody, I'm confused. I got nothing.
Okay. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to bring forward. First thing was about the ECHO grant. We've gone through the ECHO grant for the Cultural Arts Center has been bandied around a lot over the last few weeks and months. And I just kind of wanted to let y'all know some of the things that have happened, some of the things that we've looked at. I asked our city attorney to look at some potential options for maybe just where we could go forward with this. And I think rather than restate my question, I'll just let him share with us some of what he found in reference to this.
Sure, Mayor, thank you. I have recently gone through, looked at the documents I reviewed were the original ECHO grant in 2003 and 4, the amended ECHO grant in 2016-17 timeframe, the restricted covenants, obviously the agreement with the gyms, the application of the gyms, proposal from the gyms that we have, and the way the ECHO grant works is basically they have restricted covenants and we're supposed to comply with our application for a period of time. Our particular grant is subject to a 40-year restriction. Current restrictions are 20 years. And after the 20 years, the first 20 years, the second half of the 20 years, the last half of the 20 years, they start how much you have to repay. If you violate the restricted covenant, you have to repay money. During the last half of your grant, the amount you have to repay goes down as amortized over time. So when I looked at our grant in 2016-17, the amendment that was approved, that amendment basically allows us to do 4 things when I was looking at it. 1, 75% of the facility can be used for a museum, community gathering place, team activities. 25% can be used for a restaurant. And it was specifically referenced to Deckers at that time. I don't have a copy of the signed agreement with the gyms, but I looked at the agreement I prepared. The agreement with the gyms says that they have to comply with our grant. It's attached as an exhibit. Everything they do has to comply with our grant. So when we did the deal with the gyms, there was a decision made to ask the ECHO board to amend the grant. And I think that may be something we want to reconsider, because when you ask the ECHO board to amend the grant, you basically are saying 2 things. 2 things happen. 1, you're sort of implicitly saying what we're proposing to do doesn't comply, because we need to amend the scope of the ECHO grant to fit what we're proposing to do. I don't think that's true. Secondly, when we ask the ECHO board, when we go to the ECHO board to ask for something, we're having to convince them that what we propose to do fits within what their policies and objectives are. So we have to convince them that they have a lot of discretion. When I list those 4 things that we can do, and I look at the proposals from the gyms, it seems like a lot of things that we're doing fit within those 4 things, and we can probably tailor what the gyms are doing to fit those 4 things. And let's talk about the restaurant. Restaurant doesn't say it has to be a sit-down dinner restaurant, with sit-down tables. It doesn't say that you have to have alcohol served. It doesn't say how often it has to be open, hours of operation. It doesn't say anything like that in there. And probably the ECHO board, I can't imagine they like the idea, and I don't know how they approve it, of using ECHO funds for a building for a for-profit restaurant. That just seems contrary to the concept of what ECHO is for. So if we were to scale this back, the restaurant, and say, for instance, it was a cafeteria,
Sandwich counter or something?
no, at the football games, you go down.
Concession.
Keep saying cafeterias, concession stand. Have a concession stand there. Got some candy, some chips, some cookies. On the nights you do things, we maybe have a grill there, we pull it out, we cook hot dogs and hamburgers that we sell, or that they sell. Or they buy pizzas from Papa's and they sell it there like they do at football games I've gone to, high school football games. But what I'm saying is, if we withdraw our request from the ECHO board, we're no longer asking for permission to do what we're doing. I would suggest we consider telling the ECHO board, we're withdrawing our application, what the gyms, in our opinion, what the gyms is doing meets our grant obligations. So what does that do? That puts the burden on now, the Echo Board has to prove that we are in violation of our covenants and restrictions, the restricted covenants, our grant. It's no longer, we have to convince them to change something or get their permission. They've got the burden of proof that we are in violation of our covenants. How many times has the county done that? None. Zero. They've never gone after somebody to say they violated their covenants and they want their Echo funds back. Now they have, when people have changed the project to the point where it's clear that they're not going to use it for Echo purposes anymore, they have accepted it, they've been paid back. For instance, if somebody decides, hey, you know what, I want to develop this property as an apartment complex, well, it's no longer called Fletcher Echo, they pay the money back to get the restrictions and they can go forward. But they, I've been told by their attorney that they never actually found somebody, gone through the process of declaring somebody to be in violation of the restricted covenants. So what I would suggest, and I've talked to Lee about some, is let's withdraw a request to amend the Echo. Right? Take the position that we are in compliance with the Echo, with the restrictions. Work with the gyms to make sure that what they're doing that we think is a defensible within that. It's not very specific in terms of what they do. You know, I mean, I can pull it up real quick so I can tell you, but I know it's a museum, which I think we have.
And these are not exclusive things. These are things that can be part of it.
These are the 4 things that can be there. Let me see if I can find it real quick. When the facility is fully operational, Deckers will occupy 25% of the building. The parts of the facility related to the Echo grant, including museum, community gathering space, and team area, will occupy 75% of the building space. Now, the way that's actually worded, I just noticed, it says the Echo grant is not for the restaurant. It says it's for the part of the facility for museum, community gathering space, and team area. Now, for instance, this is one of the things I've heard talking with Lee that we've confronted. When we submitted the proposal, and I recently reviewed Lee's proposal, that this is going to be a community gathering space. It's going to be a space where boards can meet and other things can meet. And the current Echo board is pushing back against that, saying, no, that's not really what our vision is. You know, you got to do things that are countywide. If we switch this around, they've already given us permission to do community gathering space. So what they got to come back and say is, what the gyms is doing does not comply with that. And that's the limitation. We got the museum, okay, teen area. What's a teen area? You know, how hard is that to do? I mean, really, you know, we should be able to come up with a teen area. You know, I really think so. So I think right now we have, talking to Lee, the Young Life, a Christian Young Life group meets there. Maybe we can expand that. My son is in Young Life at UCF. That's a statewide organization. And, you know, I'd be hard pressed for anybody to criticize that organization. So overall, I think my recommendation is, maybe I wish I would have thought about it, gotten involved earlier on, but looking at it now in the picture, I think what we're doing with the gyms is consistent with our grant. And I think we should not be asking to amend it, but preparing to defend it, what we're doing. And then if the county wants to come forward and pursue that issue with us, they can, that's their right to do. Now, what would be the outcome of that? 2 things, you know, first the Echo board would make a recommendation, you have staff, and then the Echo board make a recommendation to the county council. County council will ultimately have to make that determination. So say they make the determination we're in violation of the grant, they want their $156,000 back. One, they could try to sue us to collect the money. Well, before any governmental entities sue each other, we have to sit down at a joint meeting with this commission and the county council to sit down and talk about it. That would be very helpful. Option 2, the county could say, yes, you're in violation, we're revoking the money, you owe us the money, but we're not gonna sue you to collect it. But because you owe us money, which is one of the rules of the county, is you're not allowed, you're not eligible for any additional grants from the county. So they could take that position. Well, then that puts the burden on us to sue them for their decision. And guess what? We still end up at that meeting, which I think is gonna be very beneficial. So we're gonna get to that meeting if we ultimately get there. But honestly, when I look at this, when you look at the fact that the county that has never challenged an organization's operations for violation of restrictive covenants and revoked a grant before ever. And I think if we put together, the gyms are very close, if not completely complying with this, but work on meeting these requirements. I just don't see the county trying to say we're in violation of these restrictions, which are, very broadly worded. They're not very specific. So to say that, for them to prove that we're in violation of, you don't have a teen area. We've got a pinball machine, teen area. That's the kind of, it's not specific. But we definitely have a museum and community gathering space. If the gyms does some of the things that they've done in their proposal, how is that not a community gathering space? They talked about father-daughter dance, mother-son dance, toy drives, Easter festivals, all these other things that were going on there. How is that not a community gathering space if you're doing those things? So I'm hard pressed to think the county would pursue us to say we're in violation of our grant. Maybe they would. And I think I would go this route before trying to negotiate out of the grant with the county, because they're going to take the position, if we went out to a grant, you owe us $150,000. If there's a thought that, okay, we got $150,000, let's pay it to get out from under the grant. Well, if you took $10,000 a year for 15 years, you could spend $150,000 funding programs over there that would probably meet this. Make it more clear that you met it. And at that point, you only got 5 more years left on your restrictions because after 40 years, all the echo restrictions go away, we get to do whatever we want with those. So that's just my thoughts on it. Looking at it, I think we're complying with our restrictions. I don't think we need to amend our scope. The gyms are contractually obligated to follow the scope of the grant. But I don't think it's going to be that hard for them to do that. I really don't.
The broad wording of that scope that we're currently under is very broad and really very well reflects what they're doing now. It says community gathering space is one of the 3 things. And teens, I'm sure if somebody, you don't check and say, oh, you're a teen, you're not welcome. That's whoever said that.
No, it's just a thought. As I was reading through this, I've had more and more dialogue with Lee. I was just like, let's not ask for permission. We're allowed. They think we're not doing it right, then come.
Let's just boldly state that we are in compliance.
We're in compliance. We've looked at it. Blame it. We had our attorney look at it. Our attorney says the gyms are in compliance, so we're wrong.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the research that went into that and the connections, checking with the other staff and attorneys involved. That was the stuff that we didn't know.
Do we need a motion to stop?
To do nothing?
If we've already got the paperwork submitted, if we want to withdraw, do we need a motion to withdraw?
We don't have the paperwork.
But we do have your letter.
Yeah.
You have your letter. I don't know if you all made a motion to direct staff to submit the letter, but it can't hurt to say, a motion to go down the path outlined by the city attorney to withdraw the letter and make sure we're in compliance with let's not seek amending the current ECHO grant, and let's make sure we're in compliance with the 2016 grant.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Appreciate that. And so we have a motion from Commissioner Eckert, a second from Commissioner Basso, to withdraw or to encourage staff to withdraw the change of scope. In discussion, I'd like to open the floor to, well, first to anybody who wants to address it, but also if anybody from Jim's wants to throw in on this too. I didn't get a chance before this meeting to talk to you about this, but it seems like we're going exactly where you want to go, which is being a community center. That's the word or the phrase that I most often hear from you, that you want to be a community center, a community gathering place. That's exactly what's in the current scope. I don't think defending that would be difficult at all. I think you just go the direction you want. You've said to us that you want to go. So,
Well, don't get rid of the museum. That's important. Keep that there.
yeah, I understand.
And then let's try to throw some team stuff in there so we cover all three bases.
But none of those things are specific as to size or shape. And
They're not.
and it's fairly broad. I think we can be flexible in how we move forward. And flexibility is largely what y'all are looking for. And not taking off the restrictions and the handcuffs that you're sensing currently from the ECHO people or board.
And I wasn't adding any of these, it's my understanding that the resistance from the ECHO board and ECHO staff was to our request to modify the scope.
Correct.
And
That was the question before them, and that's the only reason they were having debate at all, to my knowledge.
so if we look at it and say, look, we can have a museum, we can have community gathering spaces, we can have a teen area, we're fine with that, guys. That's what 75% of the building's gonna be used for. Thank you very much. We don't need to admit that.
Yeah, and the 25% for the restaurant was basically a concession from them saying, this doesn't fit what we want to do, but we'll let you.
Well, you know what's interesting, the way that my sentence, I didn't notice it until I read it to you. Oh, wow, sometimes it helps you read a lot, I want to hear things differently, but where it says the parts of the facility related to the ECHO grant. That's saying the ECHO grant has nothing to do with the restaurant. The ECHO grant has to do with the remaining 75%. So the restaurant's closed, and they can say, well, you don't have a restaurant. Well, it's not part of the ECHO grant. According to that, the ECHO grant are this other 75% that is for museum, community gathering space, teen area. And we focus on those three. Now, I still like the idea of the,
Concessions.
Well, there's such a large kitchen in there and the bar area and whatnot, it lends itself to that. Certainly. And the gyms can do that,
I was
however their vision would fit that. They can do
just
that.
on a totally different side note, and I think I've said this before, but this county truly lacks, and I know it because I throw an annual Christmas party. And I try to find places where you can go and you can have a large number of people and bring your own food and bring your own drinks, and you don't have to buy your food and drink from the owner of the establishment, is very rare. There are not a lot of those. They want you to make sure you have to buy the food, the alcohol, the drinks, beverages from them, in addition to renting the hall from them, because that's where they make all the money. So having a facility that has cooking facilities that people can rent out, and that they're allowed to bring in their own food and drinks, you'll be surprised how many events you would get there. And it could still probably fit within the community gathering.
And all the work that they currently they're doing on it is expanding the community gathering area to be outside and inside.
I like it
too. Any further discussion from the commission?
Yeah, where was all this brilliance several months ago?
I was reading things.
Well, I do appreciate the research you did, and honestly, I don't think we asked you to really do any deep research on this until just recently. So I appreciate your coming forward with that now.
And it was, honestly, some of it was because I saw the resistance we were getting. And I started talking to Lee, and I said, well, why don't you send me this stuff, and let me look at it, and I just started reading these things, and I said, the first question was, what are the rules of how they revoke this? What's the process for saying you're in violation and revoking the grant? So I talked to the county attorney's office, and said, there really wasn't one, and they've never done it. Okay, so it just kind of went away. And I just think it might end up better for us.
And I do also agree, you mentioned it twice in the potential process. If it were to become litigious, if the first step of that would be for this board and the county council to meet. And I think you're right. I think that would bear fruit. I think we could hammer out an agreement in 10 minutes, because I don't think they want to spend any more time on it than they have to. And I think it could be, I don't think we'll end up there because.
I really don't either, because, and this is not one of those, some type of, people make the joke of saying, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. That's not what we're saying here at all.
No.
I don't think we're doing anything wrong. I will tell you, the attorney I talked to says there was some issues with the echo when the restaurant started. I think how this thing transitioned, because if you think about it, we did the application in 2016. I started working here in 2015. We had a restaurant before I got here. So this thing transitioned from what it was under the original grant.
Well, there's a lot of history on those transitions.
On those transitions, and I think the Echo Board wasn't happy with it. So they approved this grant and made it legal, what we were doing there. And yeah, we had hard times with the restaurant, but a lot of restaurants had a hard time after, 2020 and 2021 because of COVID. I mean, there was a lot of things that had difficult times. So, I don't know, I just think this wouldn't surprise me if everything snooze out with the Echo Board and we move forward well.
That sounds nice. So we have a motion on the floor to, for staff to move forward with this idea of withdrawing our request for a change of scope and moving forward with the current contract with the gyms and the current scope, and think that works well together, and we'll keep.
It seems like historically the only time that we've had trouble is when a disgruntled somebody in this community contacted somebody at the county and said, they're not doing the right thing over there, so they have to send somebody out to look.
Yeah.
And that's happened multiple times over the years.
That's just about the way it is. So, no, I'll be happy to, can't vote.
We haven't voted yet, but if you have discussion, we're certainly.
No, I'm just gonna say we haven't read the letter.
All in favor?
I'm all right with it.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign? So I'll send that up to the gym and say, go man, go woman, knock it out of the park. You've got great ideas. I've heard a lot of them bandied about. We're gonna be behind you 100%, and we want you to feel unshackled, for lack of a better word. I know this has been hanging over your heads quite a bit, and it's been frustrating for you, and I apologize for that. But go forth and be fruitful and multiply, or something like that. Have fun. And now we move to item 13, city administrator report. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only item on my portion of the agenda has to do with setting dates for the second workshop. The first one being on Wednesday, the 18th at 10 a.m. This one, I have just given the suggested date of February 15th at 10 a.m. The topics would be stormwater master plan, how necessary to construct those improvements, long-range commission goals, which we've heard this evening will be amplified to discuss other things, leadership. Yeah. So those two topics for February 15th, that date just fits the staff. There is nothing sacred about it. If you have conflicts,
I'm trying to figure out how there's a Wednesday, February 15th and a Wednesday, February 18th.
It's a very short.
I know there is.
No, there's a January 18th.
January.
Oh, it's January 18th.
Yes.
Okay.
January 18th, that's right next week.
Okay.
And then February 15th, I don't love the day after Valentine's Day. I would rather move it a little farther forward.
If you do it on the 15th, you gotta bring cake, 'cause that's my birthday.
Another reason.
That's a deal.
And also, pushing things farther out, is,
I'd rather move it forward than, out. Bring it closer in date,
right, I agree.
preferably.
And
Anything after the 18th and before the 1st of February, I want to be here. Actually, the 20th to the 1st.
Well, how about maybe the 2nd or 3rd of February?
I'm good with that.
It's Groundhog Day, we might have to bring a cake.
Let's do that. We might as well enjoy it.
2nd, is that, what is that, a Friday?
The second's a Tuesday.
February 2nd is a Thursday.
February 2nd is Thursday. It's the Thursday before the commission meeting in February. Would that work for y'all, February 2nd?
I wonder though, can we move it to the evening instead of daytime? Since we already have the one on the 18th during the day, we can move this one on the 2nd to more evening hours. If you're agreeable with that.
I'd be fine with
The
that.
one on the 18th, I think.
The one on the 18th is at 10 a.m. And that's on, whatever was that, but this one is, we're just trying to get into before the next meeting, if that's okay. I have no problem with doing the one on, if we do it on February 2nd, doing it in the, would you like 5 or 6 o'clock, maybe 6 p.m.?
I'm always would prefer to go during the day. I typically wake up around 4:30, 5 o'clock. So I have to take a nap someday, I think, so I need to get the nap.
Okay, how about late afternoon compromise?
What would you call late?
Like
4 o'clock?
3, 4?
Is it a work issue?
It is, it's, close to billing close for me.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I'll get a nap in there. I can do 6. I'm just saying in general, when I do, typically I'm prepared for workshops because I know they're gonna eat up 4 hours. My brain is freshest and works best in the morning.
Yes, I agree. So I think 3 would be a good compromise.
3 o'clock, February 2nd?
I know I'll be at the January 18th one. Does the commission want me at that one? Okay.
Oh, that was a question. Does the commission want you to?
Yeah, does the commission want me at that?
I don't believe so. I mean, we're gonna be going over stormwater master plan and, commission goals. I don't know that we need.
I didn't see anything that was angle. I'll be at the other one because we're going to talk about assessments and fees.
Assessment and fees, and that's very good.
Yeah, I'll be at that one for sure.
I think it'd be a good idea to have you at the February 2nd.
What's that, David?
I think it would be a good idea to have you attend February 2nd. I would feel better.
Okay.
With
And
the
then
content I would like to bring up.
3 p.m.?
3 p.m.
3 o'clock. So, and I will say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna recap. So we're gonna have one on the 18th at 10 of January, February 15th at 10, and February 2nd at 3.
No, not February 15th. That one, that's what we've rescheduled now to February 2nd. So it'll be February 2nd at 3 p.m.
Very good.
Don't make it a little.
And I'll say the setting of long-range city commission goals, long range is a little bit of a misnomer there. What I want to have is us to put together our goals for this coming year, what we want to work towards. We've got some things we need to work towards, and just kind of get on the same page, so we're working together as much as we reasonably can. That was so long range was a little bit of a misstatement there. I mean, I'm looking really for your ideas as to what you want to accomplish this year.
Is, what I don't,
You want to take away our children's rivalry?
Yes, a little bit.
what I don't see in this, Lee, is it talks about the stormwater master plan, it doesn't talk about, potable water master plan.
Yeah, we did that.
And we have long-range plans, and
We've already agreed to do the immediate and intermediate capital improvement projects.
okay,
And so that's in process.
okay, good enough. You might want to just, maybe, bring that schedule in, scope of schedule, just recap it.
Matter of fact,
Keep it fresh,
you know what I'm saying? I want to bring you up to date on the 18th meeting. It's not on the agenda for the 18th, but we have time on the whole SRF process.
Okay.
We had a smattering of it tonight. But,
Yeah.
they've changed the rules on us, and it's something that'll take more time. I need to learn to do it. So,
Do you have,
Is it possible to bring us like a rough calendar of events for this year to this, long-range planning meeting? Number 2 on there. We can just kind of have a list of things around the county that we generally attend or, things that are happening in our city. That would be great. So we can plan.
I missed the first part of that.
You might-
The calendar should let the cities.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, I got a nice invitation to a thing with one of the national secretaries of something. And it was like, I had 4 hours to respond. I didn't see the thing for like 3 days. But they had only given me 4 hours to respond to this invitation. Could you and Dominique maybe get together and could you explain to her more thoroughly what it is you're looking for in that and you can have that ready?
Absolutely.
Do you have any additional?
Nope.
Okay, anybody else have anything additional to sum up with? Looking forward to, moving forward through the coming year. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
Oh my God. No, I asked him if I needed to be at the 6 because it was closed. And he said no.
Yeah, that clock.
I said,
I feel like, I
I said, I said,